Okay, so here's the late sparring video I said I was going to make for you guys. I'm going to take my glasses off because the reflection's starting to bug me. I'm going to look a lot different now than I do in the rest of the video. That's because I'm refilming this because the video was apparently too long. I'm hating YouTube's new design. It's absolutely hideous and it's really starting to get on my nerves. Idea behind this video is it's basically me sparring a friend. This video itself is more of an analysis of my sparring, me explaining my style while I'm sparring him. In no way, shape or form is this a staple. In no way, shape or form is this the only way of fighting. This is my thoughts. If you wish to adapt them or if you agree with them, that's fine by me, but I don't need to know if you hate them. I do appreciate constructive criticism, however, because as a swordsman I'm always looking to grow. A few pointers before we start on with it. There is no thrusting and there is no lunging. We are fighting via my LARP systems rules, which is Lorien Trust. The weapons are LARP safe, they are high density foam, they are not going to cause any damage. In this video there is only one blow that is questionable, however blows are pulled, which basically means you take the power out before impact. Person knows you've hit them, however there's no power. Like I said, there is one blow in the video, there's a little bit questionable, purely because I reacted a little bit faster than I intended to. But all in all, just a few bits and pieces. You'll see a clip and then you'll see me explain it. So I will leave you to it and ignore the fact that this video is different from the rest. Enjoy, guys. Okay, first clip, which I've just watched, as you can see, is a series of simple strikes. The whole point of the sparring is it's meant to be strike and return. Some of them don't stay like that. You'll notice that a lot of the time I'll hit maybe once or twice in a sequence, and then I'll break. As you can see from that one, there is a few feints, if you will, going for a strike, but then sort of stopping. That's me trying to figure out how he reacts to a certain blow. For example, the coming in straight, there is a certain body language he'll give off which will dictate I'm going to block like this. You can notice from a couple of the blows that there's ones where you go in high and then come across low. It's mostly a lot of the combat is the stance I'm using is actually massively inspired by Kendo, Bushido and Kenjutsu. It's a very sort of samurai, if you will, stance. It's got a fixed ready pose. The strikes are very simple. There's very little complexity to it. You'll notice through a lot of the videos going through that I don't block a lot with the blade itself, I block with the flat. So that's just one way of doing things. But as you can see from that, it's mostly the first couple of clashes is figuring out body language, footwork, where his eyes are looking, what his weapon is doing. As you can see from that, a lot of the blows were simply overpowering. It's using speed, and the downside to using speed is sometimes it's very hard to take the power out. In LARP wise, it's very hard to take the power out. In actual combat, speed is a very useful little skill to have under your belt. So that's the first clash. Let's have a look at the second one, shall we? Okay, second clash is an ideal example of mind games. As you notice, he goes for my sword, primarily to try and spark a reaction. As you see, I don't move at all. When I'm in a fixed stance like that and I'm completely focused, it takes a lot for me to actually break that stance. That one shot there is an absolutely prime example where I let him go for the sword to think that I'm not going to react. When he goes for it again, I do react. It makes him question whether or not he should be coming in. I just had someone sign in. Questions whether or not he should be coming at me as he is, or if he should be changing his battle tactics. So that's a prime example of mind games. Always good to play. On to the third. Okay, third clash is a prime example of a two-hit sequence. As you notice, I'm figuring out his frontal method. He's coming forward and all of his strikes are focused in a very forward-based manner. By doing that, he's left his entire side weak, as you can see where I come across his sword arm and then across the back of his leg. He doesn't have any time to respond because the way that he's been fighting has given away too many weaknesses. And I mean, he compensates for it afterwards in a lot of the instances. but that one moment he displayed a lot of weakness, and it's sort of a split second to figure out where you can strike and get away with it. That is a prime example of 2 points sort of coming across the first time and using the momentum of the first strike to come across for a second, just to make sure that you're getting the blows in where you can. Okay, this next one, as you saw, has the only questionable blow in the entire set of filming I did. As you notice from the first sort of clash, let me just go through it again myself. He came in and with a quick slight at the wrist, you put the blade aside and you come across the stomach very, very quickly. That in Lorient Trust rules, or LARP rules in general, that's a little bit edgy, because you're not going to attack with the very tip of the blade because there's no core there, so you can actually damage your weapon. It's not necessarily against the rules. Sorry, not the walls. These are walls. It's not against the rules. However, it's not necessarily advisable to attack with the tip. But as you can see, a quick flick of the wrist aside, and you come across the stomach very, very quickly. In a normal fight, that could prove to be very, very fatal because you disembowel your enemy, which causes lots of bleeding. The second blow, which was the very questionable one, he came for my legs and left a massive, massive opening. Now, I reacted purely on instinct and just came straight down. The blow itself does sound a little bit harder than it normally should be, and in which case that might be the case there. That might be a slightly heavy blow. But it is a prime example of watching your opponent's body language, and also a very prime example of why you don't bend over in front of your enemy, because you present your entire back to them, as he found out with a very firm whack. So. This clash is again a very, very good example of a feint. As you noticed from the first blow, I do a very overly elaborate manoeuvre where I bring the blade, it brings me back to my ready position, so it is practical. However, it's a little bit overzealous, if you will. The blow comes up and around in a very big circle where I come in for a strike at his arm and miss, and I just come straight back to ready, which is the plus side to that. The stance I'm using is I can immediately drop back to ready. It's very, very simple. But the feint brings it in, he comes in for another blow, and as you see from the second section, he comes in for the blow, goes for the leg, he actually clips me just across the thigh, but the blow I land is straight at the top of his back, again because he's gone for a lower swing and his torso has arced itself too far out of the way. So that's a very, well, for me, that's a good example of a feint. Okay, that clash is very, very quick. As you can see, he makes the move to run at me. It's an alright, it's a very valid tactic, because pressuring someone in a one-on-one duel, pressuring someone is a very good way to force them backwards, in which case you gain the upper hand. In this case, he goes for a dynamic advance and a simple cut across the neck lets him know that I've got him. You know, so that's again sort of why reflex is thinking ahead in a fight. As soon as you see the body language, he has a very slow sort of lean forward, a very, very slight adjustment on his toes, and he's moving. Looking at his toes lets me know that he is going for that dynamic advance, and that's how you just give him a quick tap across the neck. He knows he's been hit then. So that's a relatively good example from me of some nice fast reflexes. Okay, this clip's a little bit lengthier. Ignore my neighbour at the window being ridiculously loud on the phone. Decided to talk to me after that, asking if I had a whetstone to sharpen a diving knife, and I was like, no. But on the topic of the spar, as you can see, that sequence is a little bit more aggressive from the stance I'm using, if you will. It, again, relies on a handful of very fast reactions, at which point one of his blows actually forces me back a step. Now, I utilise the step to give him the sort of illusion that I'm in a weakened position. And as soon as I advance, he sees the advance coming, because I sort of drop my shoulders a little bit. And he gets his blade across in the first block. But as you can see, it's a series of 2 strikes. It's the first on the blade to judge it out of the way, so it's not as valid, and then a tap on the top of the head. That is the only time I hit him in the head in this entire sparring session. But it's a very quick double tap, if you will. The first to sort of relegate his weapons swing, and the second on the top of the head just to let him know I've got him. Okay, that little clash there is another good example of me utilising on a trait that my friend has displayed through the entire sparring session. As before, I sort of dropped back ready for a forward, sort of a dynamic advance on him. There's one part there where I lift my blade up thinking he's going to swing in, and I was going to go for a block and come down on his head, but he didn't swing. In which case, when I brought the blade back down, I prepped myself as if I was going to lunge at him. And when he recognises the lunge and tries to counter it, it's just a simple across the back of the leg. It completely changes my targeting zone, and it's something I don't think he foresaw, because it's a very quick movement. Utilising your body language in one way, and then using a completely different stance, if you will, sort of series of blows, catches your enemy completely off guard. If you're in a prepped stance, sort of say guard of the hawk, which is up high, blade facing behind you, up high. If you're in the guard of the hawk, they expect you to swing downwards, which is why you can go from guard of the hawk straight to the plough. And going straight to the plough means you're switching your stance, so you can advance a lot quicker. You can actually mistake that stance change for a blow because it's coming down vertically. But utilising blows that your opponent hasn't seen you use, or hasn't seen you use in the last couple of sparring sort of clashes, is always a very, very useful tactic. I mean, you can't see it in this video, but we actually got something like 20-30 minutes of sparring. These are just the best examples. The best examples of sort of traits that help for sparring. So that's a very good example of why you should keep changing your technique. Okay, last clash, so last one very quickly. This one's a very, very good example of a bad feint. Don't mean to pick him up on it, but if you watch, he very deliberately places his foot forward and to the side. Now, he'd been using that technique through the fight, which shows him advancing. He deliberately extends it and makes it very, very obvious, and then advances. In which case, I've seen the foot movement way beforehand. So instead of falling for the feint, it's just a quick drop and across the shin. It's actually both of his shins, which is quite a lucky blow. But it's both across, and that's it. That's the strike. That's the strike and retire. I've hit him before he can actually get the swing in, because me dropping makes him think I'm going to hit somewhere else, but the blade comes a lot lower than he's expecting. So that's why you shouldn't feint too much. Using the same feint is a very, very bad idea, especially as that was sort of like the 5th time in a row that he'd used the same feint. So it's good to mix and match. Never use the same sort of ideas time after time after time. You need to keep yourself fresh while you're fighting someone. Right, so that's it for the sparring I said I was going to show you guys. I rambled on for a lot longer than I thought I was going to. That little section is like 14 minutes, which gives me about a minute just over to sort of sum up the video, and I'm already on 15 seconds. I ramble a lot. Before you go commenting, I appreciate constructive criticism. I do not appreciate trolling. I understand that this is my way of thinking. You may have differences of opinions, you may have sort of things that you agree to disagree on. Feel free to discuss them with me, but you know, if I find any trollers that are just directly having a go, I'll block and delete the comments and all that sort of stuff. So hopefully this will help you guys. Chances are it probably won't. All things considered, probably because it's just my way of thinking. If anything, this will just help you if you ever spar me, because you'll understand a little bit about my thought patterns. But it's very useful to see someone else using techniques that are displayed in the video, because you can actually learn a lot for yourself. I mean, I've watched a couple of videos of other people fighting and sparring. TPRoach is a prime example. He does a lot of blades work. I learn a lot from watching some of his videos, a lot more than I seem to realise. You know, I watched a couple of his videos the other day and I've picked up on a lot of things from him. So he's definitely worth checking out. Go and search for TPRoach. The guy's a legend. Other than that, feel free to leave comments and stuff. Hopefully you enjoyed it, and if I get enough responses, then I might do a more in-depth video in the future. Take care, guys and girls.